Raise your hand if Peyton Manning cost you your matchup. Come on. Just kidding. Still love you, Manning. But you did cost me a matchup. But I know we're going to get in the forums this week, so I just want to go ahead and squash it right now. You're still starting Peyton Manning this week. You know, if you had a bye and you had him, you're still starting him. If you were still able to win your matchup week 14 and you had him, congratulations. But you're still starting him. You're still starting Peyton Manning. Wanted to get that out of the way. One other tip before getting into the waiver wire stuff. A lot of times this time of year, I'll see people waste their waiver number. You know, they might have the number 1, number 2 waiver, and they'll use it on a guy and then not even start them. If they're not going to make your starting lineup, don't use your waiver and save it for week 16 just in case, you know, a big name running back gets hurt and their backup's out there. You know who's going to be playing for you. So if they're not better, then who's going to be in your lineup? Don't waste your waiver on them. And, you know, there is the argument, oh, well, I don't want someone else to get them. Well, you know who you're playing. Look at their team. Will that player make their starting lineup? If not, it doesn't matter. Save your waiver number for the last week. You never know what can happen. Let's talk about running backs. Jonathan Stewart, I want to talk about. Only on 40% of leagues. He looked better this week than I think I've seen him for I can't even remember how long. He's clearly healthy. The Panthers are looking better on offense. You know, Cam got things going, which opens up everything for everybody else. So Jonathan Stewart could be a nice plug and play for you. You know, if you had Ellington or you're struggling at the running back spot. And speaking of Ellington, you know, there's a good chance he's not going to be back week 15. Kerwin Williams kind of threw a curveball out. You know, it did look like Stephon Taylor was going to get the carries, and then Williams ended up dominating the backfield there. It looks like it's going to be a mess from here on out, but if you're going to pick up anyone, Williams is the guy to own, only on 5% of leagues. But again, don't use a good waiver number on him unless there's a chance he makes your starting lineup. A couple people to look at in deeper leagues. You know, the Raiders' running game has been getting going with Murray, but another big reason they're doing a little bit better is Marcel Reese. You know, they do like him in the passing game, and he's a quality football player, and he's got really good hands. And they have been using him in the backfield. So deeper PPR leagues, Reese I think does need to be on the radar. And then Chris Johnson, you know, very disappointing year for him out there with the Jets, but he's been starting to get things going a little bit more. You know, in deeper leagues where he may have been dropped, you know, he's a guy that you might want to consider as a pickup and play. You know, not a bad matchup for him next week going up against Tennessee. Let's talk about some receivers. Charles Johnson, this guy needs to get a little bit more respect, only on a 20% of leagues. This guy's good. I mean, he put Cordero Patterson basically on the bench, which is saying a lot considering, you know, Patterson is talented. He just can't get things going. But Johnson has looked good. You know, he wasn't very, you know, sought after out of college because he went to a smaller school, but this is a guy that's got a lot of talent. Marquise Wilson is the guy I want to talk about in Chicago. You know, Brandon Marshall owners, I'm sure you're a little disappointed with the news with Marshall. Someone else is going to have to get some targets out there, and it looks like Wilson's going to be the guy that gets the biggest bump with the Marshall injury. I'm not saying a huge jump, but he does have an upside now. And then Marquise Lee, you know, the rookie for the Jags, he's getting a little bit better, starting to get on the same page with Bortles, it looks like. You know, he's a guy that I think could have value in deeper leagues down the stretch. Quarterbacks, now these are some guys that I think, you know, could be decent pickup and plays if you're not liking your quarterback matchup. You're not starting him over Peyton Manning, but guys to consider, Johnny Manziel. I've been talking about him last week. I'm going to talk about him again this week. I think this is the week he definitely starts. And if Manziel starts, he's an instant top 10 fantasy potential quarterback week to week just because of what he can do with his legs. So I think he needs to be considered as a pickup and play if you're iffy on your quarterback matchup. Jake Locker in really deep leagues, I don't mind going up against the Jets week 15. He's getting a shot. He's getting the starting job back, and he does throw in, you know, 20, 40 yards with his legs most weeks. So, you know, he will have some upside there. And again, matchup against the Jets, you gotta like that. And then Eli only on 60% of leagues, going up against Washington. I mean, Washington is just awful on both ends of the ball these days. So it is a divisional game, but I do expect Eli to have a solid game against them. And then my defenses, one I talked about last week. You know, hopefully you picked them up already, but if you haven't, Baltimore's going to be one of the biggest pickup and play defenses this week going up against the Jags. And then the Giants, again, going up against Washington. Giants D, I like them as a pickup and play. Big week, week 15. If you got any questions, post them in the forums. Brent's still on his honeymoon, but I will be back later in the week to do the fantasy fix. And good luck in your matchups.